Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
We are fighting the fake news. It's fake, phony, fake.
"1984 is, I believe, a quite terrifying masterpiece. So terrifying, in fact, I don't think I should like to read another like it.
I'm not absolutely dissatisfied with it. I think it is a good idea, but the execution would have been better if I had not been under the influence of TB when I wrote it.
You once claimed that you have an ability to face unpleasant facts. Is that what you've demonstrated in 1984 by drawing an accurate portrait of the future?
Something like 1984 could actually happen. This is the direction the world is going in at the present time.
We had a worldview. Republican and Democratic presidents alike, from Harry Truman to George Bush, stood for freedom.
Our nation is the enduring dream of every immigrant who ever set foot on these shores and the millions still struggling to be free. This nation, this idea called America, was and always will be a new world, our new world.
US President Barack Obama was in Silicon Valley on Thursday night to meet a handful of the biggest names in the tech industry. Among the subjects likely discussed at the closed meeting was the president's plan to invest in research and development to boost America's high-tech competitiveness. The White House released a single video clip, and this photo which shows President Obama speaking with Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg. Also in the picture, Yahoo CEO Carol Bartz and Google CEO Eric Schmidt. Others present at the meeting included Twitter CEO Dick Costolo, Oracle CEO Larry Ellison, Netflix CEO Reed Hastings, Cisco Systems CEO John Chambers, and Apple CEO Steve Jobs.
The main reason we wanted to do this is, first of all, because more and more people, especially young people, are getting their information through different media. And, historically, part of what makes for a healthy democracy, what is a good politics, is when you've got citizens who are informed, who are engaged. And what Facebook allows us to do is make sure this isn't just a one-way conversation.
Any day now, a grand jury in Missouri is expected to return a finding in the shooting death of Michael Brown in Ferguson this past summer. Today, audio tapes emerged of police radio calls in the moments just before the shooting. Vicente Arenas is there.
Okay, we're taking a stealing in progress from 9101 West Florissant. Subject may be leaving the business at this time.
What you're hearing is a radio call between a Ferguson police dispatcher and officers following a convenience store robbery on August 9th. The recordings were obtained by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Just after 11:53 a.m., a description of a suspect is given.
It's going to be a black male in a white T-shirt. He's running toward Quick Trip. He took a whole box of Swisher cigars.
4 minutes later, more details.
He's with another male. He's got a red Cardinals hat, white T-shirt, yellow socks, and khaki shorts.
Police were told the two men, who were later identified as Brown and a friend, Dorian Johnson, had left the store. At noon, Officer Darren Wilson joins the hunt.
Yes, Amy.
At 12:02, Wilson spots Brown and Johnson in the middle of the street and asks for backup. Moments later, a scuffle reportedly broke out between Brown and Wilson. Shots were fired, and Brown went down.
I'd gone to open the door and get out of the car. And when I did so, as I was opening the door, I said, "Hey, come here for a minute." And that's when he turned and said, you going to do about it, and slammed my door shut on me.
Slam the door shut?
Yes. I used my door to try and push him back and yell at him to get back. And again, he just pushed the door shut and just stares at me. And as I look back at him, all of a sudden, punches start flying.
He threw the first punch?
Yes. Yes, I didn't know if I'd be able to withstand another hit like that.
Where's your gun at that point?
I keep it on my right hip. Mm-hmm. I take it out and I come up, I pointed at him. And when I said, get back or I'm going to shoot you. And then his response, immediately, he grabbed the top of my gun. And when he grabbed it, he said, "You're too much of shoot me." And while he's doing that, I can feel his hand trying to come over my hand and get inside the trigger guard and try and shoot me with my own gun. And that's when I pulled the trigger for the first time.
What happened?
Didn't go off. The gun was actually being jammed by his hand on top of the firearm. So I tried again, and again another click. And this time I'm like, this has to work, otherwise I'm going to be dead. He's going to get this gun away from me. Something's going to happen, and I'm going to be dead. So I pull a third time, and it finally goes off.
That was the first time you'd ever used your gun, right?
Yes, it was.
In all your years as a police officer?
Yes.
And then what happens?
He gets even angrier. His aggression, his face, the intensity just increases. And he comes back in at me again. I wasn't looking at him, I was just like, racket, expecting another hit, and I put my gun up and fired. Then I go to exit my car. And when I'm getting out, I use my walkie and I say, "Shots fired, send more cars." And I start chasing after Michael Brown.
Why not stay in the car? He's running away.
Because he's not, my job isn't to just sit and wait. I have to see where this guy goes.
So you felt it was your duty to give chase?
Yes, it was. That's what we were trained to do.
He runs out of the car, gets about 30 or 40 feet. You can now get out of the car. Mm-hmm. You start to follow him. And then he stops?
He does stop.
Why?
When he stopped, he turned and faced me. And as he does that, his right hand immediately goes into his waistband. And his left hand is a fist at his side. And he starts charging me.
What did you think when you saw that?
I didn't know. My initial thought was, is there a weapon in there?
Even though he hadn't pulled something out earlier when he was confronting you?
It was still just the unknown. And again, we're taught to let me see your hands. After he's coming at me and I decide to shoot, I fired a series of shots and paused.
What did you see?
I don't know where, but I saw his body kind of just flinch a little. And after that, I paused and I again yelled, "Stop, get on the ground," giving him the opportunity to stop. And he ignored all the commands and he just kept running. And so after he kept running again, I shot another series of shots. And at least one of those hit him because I saw the flinch. Well, this time he's about 15 feet away. So I start backpedaling because he's just getting too close and he's still not stopping. He gets to about 8 to 10 feet, and as he does that, he kind of starts to lean forward like he's going to tackle me. And I looked down my barrel of my gun and I fired, and what I saw was his head, and that's where it went.
Is there anything you could have done differently that would have prevented that killing from taking place?
No.
Nothing?
No.
And you're absolutely convinced, when you look through your heart and your mind, that if Michael Brown were white, this would have gone down in exactly the same way?
Yes.
No question.
No question.
Everybody want me to be calm. Do you know how them bullets hit my son? What they did to his body as they entered his body?
Said I'm tired of being peaceful and tired of being calm. They've been going to war on us for over 400 years, so I ain't peaceful. I ain't no protest. I'm violent.
Y'all murdered my fucking son! Burn this motherfucker out! Burn this bitch down! I said you can't stop the revolution!
You took out a full-page ad in major U.S. newspapers last year criticizing U.S. foreign policy. What would you do differently, Donald?
I'd make our allies, forgetting about the enemies you can't talk to so easily, I'd make our allies pay their fair share. We're a debtor nation. Something's going to happen over the next number of years with this country, because you can't keep going on losing $200 billion, and yet we let Japan come in and dump everything right into our markets and everything. It's not free trade. If you ever go to Japan right now and try to sell something, forget about it, Oprah. Just forget about it. It's almost impossible. They don't have laws against it. They just make it impossible. They come over here, they sell their cars, their VCRs, they knock the hell out of our companies. And hey, I have tremendous respect for the Japanese people. I mean, you can respect somebody that's beating the hell out of you, but they are beating the hell out of this country. Kuwait, they live like kings. The poorest person in Kuwait, they live like kings. And yet they're not paying. We make it possible for them to sell their oil. Why aren't they paying us 25% of what they're making? It's a joke.
This sounds like political presidential talk to me, and I know people have talked to you about whether or not you want to run. Would you ever?
Probably not, but I do get tired of seeing the country ripped off.
Why would you not?
I just don't think I really have the inclination to do it. I love what I'm doing. I really like it.
Also, it doesn't pay as well.
No, it doesn't. But, you know, I just probably wouldn't do it, Oprah. I probably wouldn't, but I do get tired of seeing what's happening with this country. And if it got so bad, I would never want to rule it out totally, because I really am tired of seeing what's happening with this country, how we're really making other people live like kings, and we're not.
Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. Not missiles, but microbes. Now, part of the reason for this is that we have invested a huge amount in nuclear deterrence, but we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic.
Today, fellow Dow component Nike backed President Obama in his push for a new global trade agreement.
That there have been a bunch of critics about trade deals generally and the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And what's interesting is typically they're my friends coming from my party. And they're my fellow travelers on minimum wage and on job training and on clean energy and on every progressive issue. They're right there with me. And then on this one, they're like whooping on me. What this trade agreement would do is open the doors to the higher skill, higher wage jobs of the future, jobs that we excel at. It would make sure our manufacturers who are operating at the higher end of the value chain are able to access these growing markets. Nike announced that with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, it'll make new investments in advanced manufacturing, not overseas, but right here in the United States. And far more Nike products would be made in the USA.
The chairman and co-founder of Nike, Phil Knight, is stepping down.
Twitter CEO Dick Costolo is stepping down.
Commissioner Stearns informed the board that he would be stepping down as commissioner.
79-year-old Bud Selig will formally announce his retirement today.
Now we can see a new world coming into view.
This week, the Wall Street Journal broke news that the Obama administration secretly airlifted $400 million in cash to Iran. The money was owed as part of a failed arms deal prior to the 1979 Islamic Revolution, but the payment coincided with the release of 4 Americans imprisoned in Tehran, raising questions about cash for prisoners.
We announced these payments in January, many months ago. There wasn't a secret. We announced them. To all of you.
I mean, the difficult part of the story from the very beginning was the administration did announce back in January this $1.7 billion payment. But as far as the specifics, the mechanics, they've refused to answer, like, when did the money arrive? How was it spent? Was it sent in cash? Until through our reporting, we found out that actually this money was sent in pallets of cash on a plane secretly. And to this day, we're still trying to figure out the timing. When did this money arrive? And through this reporting, there is indications that it was sequenced, that basically these Americans weren't going to be released until that money arrived.
We give them $1.7 billion in cash. I mean cash, bundles of cash as big as this stage. We gave them $1.7 billion. Now, They have aligned. He has aligned with Russia and with Iran. They don't want ISIS, but they have other things because we're backing rebels.
Now, Hillary and President Obama have come a long way in their history of hugging. From this paltry excuse for a hug 8 years ago after he defeated her, to this. A hug so close that Hillary closed her eyes. They even gazed into each other's eyes. This was a hug so novel for these two, it looked like the cover of a romance novel.
President Obama making a secret deal with Australia to take in thousands of illegal immigrants. The Australians didn't want them. Mr. Obama says, we'll take them.
I think the refugee debate is an example of us not being well served by some of the commentary that's been taking place by officials back home and in the media.
Nick, did I have it right? I mean, Australia says no to these people. America says yes.
Stuart, you absolutely nailed it. 2,500 illegal immigrants to Australia that Australia didn't want and put into detention.
Why didn't Australia want them?
Well, they're lawbreakers, they're queue jumpers, they've done the wrong thing, and Australia has a very strong policy that says that if you come to Australia the wrong way, you never get to be in Australia.
Who are these people?
These people hail from all nations that are of significant national security concern. 2 of them, in fact, are on the state sponsors of terrorism watch list that the State Department of the United States had.
We've been criticized that it is so cumbersome that it's very difficult for us to show the kind of compassion that we need to for these folks who are suffering under the bombings of Assad and the attacks of ISIL. They're victims of this terrorism.
Now, you say that this was a secret agreement that our president put in place. Secret? I mean,
look, both the Australian government and the United States government have been very reluctant to speak about details. We don't know much. What we do know, Stuart, is that 2,500 Costa Rican Christian refugees are going to be part of the swap. So the United States is going to swap 2,500 Christian refugees for 2,500 illegal Muslim immigrants to Australia.
Wait. Are you kidding me?
I couldn't kid you.
Individuals say that we should have a religious test and that only Christians, proven Christians, should be admitted. That's offensive and contrary to American values.
And we now have them in our country, and wait till you see this is going to be the great Trojan horse. And wait till you see what happens in the coming years. Lots of luck, Hillary. Thanks a lot for doing a great job.
As we commemorate Black History Month, we've got some history makers around the table here today. Some are legends, like Congressman Lewis and Reverend C.T. Vivian. I would not be here were it not for the battles that they fought a generation ago. But we've also got some young people here who are making history as we speak.
I believe that young people on the streets reminded established leaders in the halls of power what courage looks like, and helped those who were our models of bravery resurrect a spirit of resistance in themselves. Of course, many that celebrated no bill, no break decried and denounced Ferguson. Many called us thugs, ignoring the fact that as peaceful protesters we were gassed, shot at, and terrorized in our own neighborhoods.
Last year, a National Football League fan poll found Kaepernick was the most disliked player in the NFL.
For the land and of the free.
Colin Kaepernick is best known not for his performance on the field, but rather this one, on the sidelines. Kneeling during the U.S. national anthem has become Kaepernick's signature move, a gesture to protest discrimination against minorities in the U.S.
We have a lot of people that aren't treated equally, aren't given equal opportunities. Police brutality is a huge thing.
Trying to remind folks that part of what makes this country special is that we respect people's rights to have a different opinion and to make different decisions about how they want to express their concerns.
And the test of our fidelity to our Constitution, to freedom of speech, to our Bill of Rights, is not when it's easy, but when it's hard.
Given, as you heard from the introduction, that I have been around for a while and have had the opportunity and the privilege and the pleasure of serving in 5 administrations, I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak.
What a great honor to be able to introduce for the first time ever anywhere the 45th President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump. Chief Justice Roberts, President Carter, President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, fellow Americans, and people of the world, thank you.
I think there are a good many of you people here, both photographers and representatives of the press, have been going into my office for the past 4.5 years, occasionally. No doubt you've noticed that on the walls there are the prints of 4 men. Men that I consider, in my book, are about the 4 top Americans of the past. They are Franklin, Washington, Lincoln, and Lee. And anybody who ever tries to put me in any other relationship with respect to General Lee is mistaken.
I was very honored, very, very honored, when I heard that President Bill Clinton and Secretary Hillary Clinton was coming today, and I think it's appropriate to say, and I'd like you to stand up. I'd like you to stand up.
3:30 this afternoon, the President and First Lady watch from the Capitol steps as the military honors its new Commander-in-Chief. Ivanka Trump tweeting heading to the parade. And the parade begins. Along the way, the new First family getting out of the motorcade. The President and the First Lady waving on their way to the White House.
Our democracy is not the buildings. It's not the monuments. It's you being willing to work to make things better and being willing to listen to each other and argue with each other and come together and knock on doors and make phone calls and treat people with respect. And that doesn't end. This is just a little pit stop. This is not a period, this is a comma in the continuing story of building America.
Each American generation passes the torch of truth, liberty, and justice in an unbroken chain all the way down to the present. That torch is now in our hands, and we will use it to light up the world.
I want to thank our new president. You just started the revolution.
Busy day in Washington. All eyes on President Trump today
about his ties to Russia.
Into Russia ties with his campaign.
Into Russia's hacking of the U.S. election.
Let's make sure we get this on the record. Did you at any time as a representative of the Trump campaign or after your time with the Trump campaign have regular contacts with Russian officials during the election?
Categorically, positively not.
Is the vice president in the dark too?
Nobody was in the dark, Jonathan. Our story is consistent.
Michael Flynn's resignation as National Security Advisor after only just over 3 weeks on the job had been brewing for days. The retired general had become a lightning rod for criticism over his ties with Russia.
We're taking a firm, bold, and decisive measure. We have to turn things around. The era of empty talk is over. It's over.
President Trump has just fired the director of the FBI, James Comey.
That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere.
It was just days after Comey appeared before the Senate defending his handling of the Clinton email probe, adding for the first time publicly that how it unfolded made him uneasy.
He's like a fox, and a fox is always more dangerous in the forest than the wolf. You can see the wolf coming. You know what he's up to, but the fox will fool you.
Look, this was terrible. It makes me mildly nauseous to think that we might have had some impact on the election, but honestly, it wouldn't change the decision.
He comes at you with his mouth shaped in such a way that even though you see his teeth, you think he's smiling. You take him for a friend.
I rise today, Mr. Speaker, to call for the impeachment of the President of the United States of America.
If Russia or anybody else is trying to interfere with our elections, I think it's a horrible thing, and I want to get to the bottom of it, and I want to make sure it will never, ever happen.
Former FBI Director Robert Mueller will now lead the investigation. Democrats and some Republicans had been calling for this move. The news coming just 24 hours after we learned that former FBI Director James Comey, who was fired by President Trump, kept notes about his meetings with the president.
Well, I respect the move, but the entire thing has been a witch hunt, and there is no collusion between certainly myself and my campaign.
He's going to bring all these jobs back. Well, how exactly are you going to do that? What are you going to do? There's no answer to it.
The U.S. economy hit a record.
Fastest 1,000-point move in history.
The stock market has smashed one record after another. You're up 200, up 1,000, up 150, up 90, up 63. I said, goodness, that's better.
Unemployment in America, 17-year low.
92nd straight month of job growth, so that's a record streak.
Unemployment rate dropped to 3.7%. That's a number that we haven't seen in nearly 50 years.
African-American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded.
That's why they'll never tell you that under President Trump, this is 1 year.
But I love this guy right here. Let me give this guy a hug right here. And Hispanic American unemployment has also reached the lowest levels in history.
How come with the Russian people?
Well, maybe we have a better president than you do. We are finally seeing rising wages.
These are all things that the Destroy Trump media never reports on because it doesn't fit their narrative.
Mr. President, you care about truck drivers, and we see that.
President Trump and North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un finished an unprecedented meeting in Singapore.
When I did it, and I was really being tough, and so was he, and we would go back and forth, and then we fell in love.
And with the tax cuts, we've been able to increase our capital investment this year by $127 million.
And all of that is before the president's historic tax cuts have even started to kick in.
We have your back. We have your back.
PepsiCo announcing longtime CEO Andrew Newey stepping down as CEO on October 3rd after 12 years. Newey is going to be replaced by current President Ramon Laguarta, a 22-year veteran of the company. Newey will remain chair of the company's board until early next year.
We owe the American people to be there for them, for their financial security, respecting the dignity and worth of every person in our country. And if there's some collateral damage for some others who do not share our view, well, so be it, so be it, so be it, so be it, so be it.
An economic miracle is taking place in the United States, and the only thing that can stop it are foolish wars, politics, or ridiculous partisan investigations.
As the special counsel report makes clear, the Russian government sought to interfere in our election process. But thanks to the special counsel's thorough investigation, we now know that the Russian operatives who perpetrated these schemes did not have the cooperation of President Trump or the Trump campaign.
Breaking news overnight, President Trump personally ordered the suspension of hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid to Ukraine just days before he encouraged their president to investigate his political rival, Joe Biden. This development is fueling new calls to open impeachment proceedings in the House.
No, you heard that we had, I think, good phone call. It was normal. We spoke about many things, and so I think, and you read it, that nobody pushed me. Yes.
No words, no pressure.
As Speaker of the House, I solemnly and sadly open the debate on the impeachment of the President of the United States. If we do not act now, we would be derelict in our duty. It is tragic that the President's reckless actions make impeachment necessary. He gave us no choice.
We will hear 30-minute opening arguments from counsels for the majority and the minority of this committee. Order in the room. Order in the room. Order in the committee room. We voted for Donald Trump, and they're simply removing it because they don't like it. Americans are sick of your impeachment scandal. They're sick of the Democrat treason. We know who committed the crime, and it wasn't Trump.
What I need Saturday Night Live to improve on, and what I need the liberals to improve on is, if he don't look good, we don't look good.
Wait, Mr. President, just a few questions.
Can you comment on Ambassador Sondland's damning testimony about your illegal dealings with Ukraine?
I can't really hear you that good because of this lousy chopper behind me. But it sounds like you said Sondland's testimony completely exonerated me, and I totally agree.
This is our president.
Yesterday indeed was historic, but for a different reason than Pelosi's fist bumps and high fives and commemorative pens. They acted like a bunch of southpaws getting Major League Baseball contracts. It was embarrassing.
If you think you've done the country a good service by legitimizing this impeachment process, what you have done is unleash the partisan forces of hell.
Article 1 charges the President of the United States with abusing the power of his office by coercing an ally into cheating in a U.S. election on his behalf. It charges the President of the United States. It charges the...
In this article of impeachment, 48 senators have pronounced Donald John Trump, President of the United States, guilty as charged.
Madam Speaker, the President of the United States.
52 senators have pronounced him not guilty as charged. The Senate adjudges that the respondent, Donald John Trump, President of the United States, is not guilty as charged in the first article of impeachment. "47 senators have pronounced Donald John Trump, President of the United States, guilty as charged. 53 senators have pronounced him not guilty as charged. Donald John Trump, President of the United States, is not guilty as charged in the second article of impeachment."
You weren't supposed to do that.
And I don't need any lessons from anybody, especially the President of the United States, about dignity.
We went through hell.
Out of that historic victory for President Trump in the impeachment trial.
And Trump not guilty of abuse of power and the obstruction of Congress.
Something which almost everyone said was impossible to do.
Did you just see how Speaker Nancy Pelosi ripped up the speech right behind the president?
It's necessary to get the attention of the American people.
Our spirit is still young. The sun is still rising.
God's grace is still shining. And my fellow Americans, the best is yet to come. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. My fellow Americans, tonight I want to speak with you about our nation's unprecedented response to the coronavirus outbreak that started in China and is now spreading throughout the world.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who represents San Francisco, toured the area this morning. She says there's no reason tourists or locals should be staying away.
Everything is fine here. Come because precautions have been taken. The city is on top of the situation.
Today, the World Health Organization officially announced that this is a global
pandemic is not a word to use lightly or carelessly. It's a word that, if misused, can cause unreasonable fear.
To keep new cases from entering our shores, we will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days.
But neither should we panic or fall back on xenophobia.
Americans always rise to the challenge and overcome adversity. Our future remains brighter than anyone can imagine. Acting with compassion and love, we will heal the sick, care for those in need, help our fellow citizens, and emerge from this challenge stronger and more unified than ever before.
Downplaying it, being overly dismissive, or spreading misinformation is only going to hurt us and further advantage the spread of the disease.
Good afternoon, I'm Karen Swenson. More cases and more events affected. Here is the latest coronavirus news. There are now 33 cases in Louisiana.
Yesterday we had 22 cases. Today we have 33 cases.
We have 33 confirmed positive cases in Arkansas.
As of this afternoon, we have 33 Pennsylvanians who have tested positive for COVID-19.
As of this morning, there were 33 cases in North Carolina.
These latest steps as the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Rhode Island jumps by 33 overnight.
As of today, we have 33 confirmed cases with Boston residents.
Within the past couple of hours, there are now 33 confirmed cases of the coronavirus in Michigan.
We cannot buy our security, our freedom from the threat of the bomb, by committing an immorality so great as saying to 1 billion human beings now enslaved behind the Iron Curtain, give up your dreams of freedom, because to save our own skins, we're willing to make a deal with your slave masters.
Thousands of people are confined to their homes, but this pandemic is actually bringing freedom to some New York City inmates.
As of last night, 200 inmates from our jail system have been released. That action last night allowed us to hit a major milestone. And none of us expected this crisis, but one thing that has come out of it is that our jail population continues to decline.
And someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically.
Over the weekend, released from Rikers Island and other facilities, the city says it's reviewing another 200 inmates.
And Stephan, you're talking about inmates. Harvey Weinstein is now in isolation in prison after testing positive for the coronavirus. Just last week, he was transferred from Rikers Island to a maximum security prison upstate.
In our world, there will be no emotions except fear, rage, triumph, and self-abasement. The sex instinct will be eradicated. We shall abolish the orgasm. There will be no loyalty except loyalty to the party. But always there will be the intoxication of power.
We're closed. But this is extremely important, extremely important, extremely important.
If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever.
Where you from, son? Where you from, son? Where you from, son? Where you from, son? John Wright, he was a good guy. And so was Sandy. And so was Sandy. And so was Sandy. And so was Sandy. And so was Sandy.
The moral, to to be drawn from this dangerous nightmare situation is a simple one. Don't let it happen. It depends on you.
Now listen to me, both of you. Now listen to me.
Attention. Bomber coming in. Our men walked into a deliberate trap.
Of course, there is another possible explanation.
No, certainly not, Excellency.
Let's get out of here. It is very literally a matter of life and death. Matter of life and death.
We have but one objective: to win the war.
All right, now go.
Try to control a black person through the concept of racism because they know that we are very proud, emotional people.
How are we going to get rid of racism and stop talking about it?
There are many whites who are trying to solve the problem, but you never see them going under the label of liberal. That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere.
The objective is to deal a death blow to the Allies.
All patrol craft in test area, this is a mayday.
We are destined to conquer the world.
There must be some clue.
When they gonna blame black people for this and black people didn't do it?
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
What is that thing?
But that's not possible. We've been expecting you.
Well, oh, I'm fortunate. Let's get out of here.
I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting.
Someday you'll go too far.
Ghislaine Maxwell, the associate and ex-girlfriend of disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, has been arrested by the FBI.
The victim alleges that Maxwell helped Epstein and other men abuse her for years.
But because he had a woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, they let their guard down. They thought that they were safe with a woman.
All the while, she was setting them up to be sexually abused by Epstein, and in some cases, by Maxwell herself.
Did Jeffrey Epstein rape you? Yeah, no, he raped me.
You're like one of those big new media disruptors. Why did the entertainment industry need to be disrupted?
Oh, I think just for the fun of it.
We want to show them we're not little kids, don't we? Not like that.
It works out much better to please people to look at the actual choices that they make, their revealed preferences by how much they enjoy simple pleasures.
This whole issue of privacy is utterly fascinating to me. Who's ever heard of this information being misused by the government?
Being president doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you are.
You know, they're running a public test of some different ways of using the platform now.
Does Twitter censor the content of its users? Does it hide what it would consider inflammatory comments, whether they be social or political?
Absolutely not. We do have community standards around things that you can and cannot say.
You have 15 to 20,000 people working on security and content review. Do you know the political orientation of those 15 to 20,000 people engaged in content review?
No, Senator. We do not generally ask people about their political orientation when they're joining the company.
So you're now seeing the simple concept, all digitization is really about value-wise, right information to the right person, the right point in time to make the right decision.
It's essential if we want to minimize the kind of strikes that we just had in Boston.
If you think things cannot possibly get worse, trust me, they can and they will.
If Trump is reelected, things will get even worse.
You're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts.
Anybody should be deeply dismayed about a handful of Silicon Valley billionaires having that much power over our elections.
Those choices sent someone to the Oval Office who lost the national popular vote by nearly 3 million votes.
I must correct you. The 2.6 million is a rock bottom minimum. The range is between 2.6 and 10.4 million, depending on how aggressively they used the techniques that I've been studying now for 6.5 years.
First words out of my mouth, way out of sequence and typically self-centered. Through the tears, I asked, who's going to be my hero now?
I think right now, like any other time in our nation's history, we need God.
Still need help from the boss.
The market seems to be pricing in a V-shape.
A V-shaped recovery here.
V-shapes all round.
You talk about a V, that's like a super V.